Good evening. This is Maestro with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Broadcast. Today, we have a 1v1 on Ashes of Typhon. Our first player is going to be Gordian Vorenthul, playing as the Plague Champion. Shooty Space Chaos ranged hero with a damage over time bolter to start out, can get melee weapons later on, can also heal and repair. His opponent is going to be Kill Jester. This mean-looking Kommando Nob that he's playing right here has guns, bombs, and knives to kill you all sneaky-like. So then, I got another replay submission while I continue to wait for the Faction War replays to be sorted through and then delivered to me. So until then, we're going to take a look at this 1v1 replay, and this is, these are two players who I don't think I've actually seen them yet in a 1v1 setting. But it is nice to see it. Got a nice and long one. And this matchup we got right here, Chaos versus Orcs. Now, it's especially hard for me these days. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it was a little bit easier for me to say who I thought exactly was favored. But even then, my approach to matchups is it's always hard to control personal bias. Even very high-level players can be susceptible to their own bias if they play a certain race and tend to believe that their race or hero is unfavored in a surprisingly high number of cases. But at least when I think classically, historically, I'm thinking more way back than necessarily what is absolutely true today. Historically and classically, I do generally think of Chaos having a bit of an advantage over the Orcs. And this is also something that does vary very heavily depending on the commander. Commanders can change things. However, already we're seeing Kill Jester doing something well against Gordian Vorenthul. Gordian Vorenthul's Chaos Space Marines kind of caught out in a bad position, caught isolated, caught outnumbered, and then they lost a model which forced their retreat. Now, part of the way the Chaos Space Marines should work in this matchup is, first of all, head-to-head, individually, one-on-one, they will beat the shooter squads, pretty much period. Especially if they're in cover, especially if they've got support from Nurgle Worship. So they were caught out in a situation where they were just being focused down by the combination of the Shooter Boys as well as the Kommando Nob, and that was just so overwhelming that even with that tanky heavy infantry armor, they eventually just lost a model. So that's going to be part of what Kill Jester is going to be looking for, trying to find situations where he can catch the Chaos Space Marines, again, isolated, without support from Heretic Worship, and then just overwhelm him with the concentrated DPS of these multiple Orc squads. And that's going to become even more true as the game goes on if Kill Jester can continue to find those particular engagements, since he is now upgrading. I'm actually surprised. It feels to me, I'm wondering what else he's buying. He actually got the burners, I think, first. But the big shooters are finally coming in, and he got that model kill before on the Chaos Space Marines when he didn't even have the big shooters. Getting the big shooters is a considerable damage increase for your shooter boys. It basically, for 2 of the models on the squad, it doubles the DPS for 2 of the models, and I think it even increases the range of the squads by just a little bit. But here is going to be engagement. Heretics will approach. Both of them will get suppressed. However, it does look like with 2 Heretic squads out on the field, that will be enough to force off the Sluggers. The Shooter Boys using their Aiming What Stat ability to... increasing the Aiming What Stat ability, or using the Aiming What Stat ability to control the Chaos Heretics, but it was just a little bit hard for Kill Jester to manage that with there being 2 Heretic squads out on the field. If there was only the one here that we see was taken down to about 40% of its hit points, maybe that could have been a 1 engagement for Kill Jester. But with that win for Gordian Vorenthul, he's now actually able to make good on his Bile Spewer purchase. When I initially saw the Bile Spewer, I honestly kind of questioned it, because you're giving up that damage over time bolter from the Plague Champion, also something pretty good against those Orc squads when the Plague Champion can find himself in cover with Heretic Worship. Now, technically, the Bile Spewer can actually still do plenty of damage to an Orc squad if he can get into range, but because this is more of a flamer weapon, it has shorter range than his bolter, it's going to be harder for him to make sure that he gets into cover, because even if he is in cover, Shooter Boys can just kind of kite away from the Plague Champion and put themselves in a place where they can basically outrange the Plague Champion's Bile Spewer. And, you know, we saw him get a single generator. If anything, I'm not yet really feeling the strength of this Bile Spewer purchase. And this is one of those area of effect abilities that Chaos can have that can be strong. Wouldn't come to the top of my mind. I think the really strong area of effect ability that the Plague Champion will have later on once we get to Tier 2, and if he has enough red, would be the Noxious Cloud. Something that could not only win engagements, but if Kill Jester doesn't react fast enough, could result in, like, wiped Shootaboys or Sluggas. Now, both of our players going for pretty light Tier 1s. They have definitely gotten some upgrades. We've got the double AC ticks. We also have the Bile Spewer, so there's some power investment in the upgrades. But honestly, a little bit surprised to see such light Tier 1s and not even going for any Tier 1.5 unit for either of these players. Kill Jester getting to Tier 2 pretty quickly. Gordian Vorenthul is behind him, but it doesn't look like it'll be really substantial or significant in terms of, you know, creating a big window of opportunity for Kill Jester. You know, I say that, but let's actually wait a little bit longer and see if maybe that's not the case, because the Death Dread is building. Death Dread is building. Death Dread will get out on the field a little bit shortly after the Tier 2 upgrade happens for Gordian Vorenthul. So yet again, we're seeing Gordian Vorenthul kind of, those Chaos Space Marines kind of caught out of position, getting focused down, but there was only a single shooter squad here. There wasn't the double shooters. I think if both double shooters were here instead of having the Slugger here, then it could have been a model kill on the Chaos Space Marines. But the Chaos Space Marines disengage entirely, leaving the Plague Champion and the Heretics to deal with this themselves. We did see the Bilious Discharge from the Plague Champion, but oh no, it's not enough to save them from the Sluggers. He kept the Plague Champion in there way too long. So the idea there from Gordian Vorenthul was using the Bilious Discharge as a way to control the Sluggers. And, you know, you just... It's basically a snare ability, slows them down, but he just kept the Plague Champion in there too long. He did not have the health to survive on retreat. And of course, we also have the upgraded Sluggers with their Nob. Use the Swamp ability. My god, ability, a hard word apparently. But that Swamp ability does actually turn the Sluggers into, honestly, one of the best retreat-killing squads in the game. I would say, in my opinion, and I'm not going to be... Oh, Kommando Nob will go down, though, while I'm trying to talk about my opinions. Chaos Space Marines also losing models. No Heretic Worship for them for some reason. Oh, because we got the Death Dread on the back line. Oh, the Death Dread spam out of Kill Jester. I mean, these Stompy tin cans, they are quite cheap, especially compared to the Dreadnought, which is now upgrading to the Mark of Khorne. So my opinion's that we missed, as we have both dead commanders out on the field. In my opinion, I think it's kind of hard. I would personally think top 3 retreat-killing squads in the game. Howling Banshees is a very obvious one. Khorne Chaos Space Marines, I think, are up there. And I would say Sluggers with their Nob and the Swampum ability activated, I think, is there too. So those might be like top 3. We might also think about maybe Seer Council. That might also be one too. So those might be like the top 4. Ooh, Sluggers, meanwhile, I don't even know if they had to get that on retreat while I'm over here looking at some shooters burning down or shooting down a generator. We do have Sluggers taking out one of the AC tick squads. So this is looking rough for Gordian Vorenthul. Kill Jester, in the end, actually choosing to cancel the second Death Dread and instead goes for Tank Busters. Could be that the second Death Dread was an Overwatch mistake. Could also just be that he at some point saw the Dreadnought and canceled the Death Dread in favor of the Tank Busters. And I definitely would say that if he saw the Dreadnought, then canceling the second Death Dread in favor of the Tank Busters is definitely an appropriate choice. Tank Busters also a little bit of a cheaper power investment, so that does also mean that's going to be Kill Jester advancing to Tier 3. Now, certainly head-to-head, like in just a head-to-head melee fight, Death Dread 100% loses to the Chaos Dreadnought. That's why we have the Tank Busters here. The Tank Busters finding themselves a little bit out of position. So that will be mostly Kill Jester kind of backing up. The Khorne Dreadnought certainly at the moment is definitely getting some value. But as we saw, there were definitely some potential positioning issues. I don't actually think there was a huge amount of value in the Tank Busters coming from a flanking angle. I feel like The heretics should actually be focusing on the sluggers rather than tank busters. I mean, yes, I know. Yeah, if they had focused on the sluggers earlier, that would have been a wipe on the sluggers. Like, if anything, I was questioning it, but when I saw how much damage those sluggers were taking after the heretics were finally focusing on the sluggers, it 100% would have been a wipe on the sluggers if he had focused on them earlier instead of going after the tank busters. And although that does mean the tank busters would be free to shoot at the dreadnought, I think the dreadnought could have tanked a few volleys from the tank busters. The dreadnought could have tanked a few volleys from the tank busters, just making sure that's actually what I said. Chaos Space Marines putting some pressure on the tank busters. Tank busters now getting a little bit too low. Why is this Death Dread perpetually in range stance, it seems? Must just be like a little bit of a micro mistake from Kill Jester. Just so many times when it seems to be just shooting with flamers instead of engaging in melee. Or burners, technically. This Dreadnought needs to move back, though. Like, it needs to just get out of here. I mean, luckily for him, the tank busters aren't here, but I'm not sure entirely how much he knows that. He's actually going to commit. He's going to commit the Blood Rage, but I feel like the Death Dread should be able to stomp on out of there. Yeah, it's going to use his charge ability, and this presents the opportunity for the tank busters to get back out here. I think Gordian Vorenthul possibly getting a little debated here. If anything, move the shooters forward to draw the Dreadnought into the tank busters' firing range. What is the range of... He's not continuing. I feel like this is another time for hide the boys from Kill Jester and chase after this Dreadnought. I feel there's very much a missed opportunity here. And okay, the heretics will come in for repairs. Yeah, repairs. But I feel like the tank busters, they still have an opportunity. They are infiltrated, and this could be like a tank buster barrage. It's a little bit tricky now. They walk so close, though. They'll find themselves getting detected in melee with the heretics. What is going on? Oh, no. All right, then. Anyway, what else we got? We got Chaos Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines, wow. Well, it's a little bit surprising to see these Chaos Space Marines. They've got no upgrades whatsoever. They are level 2, but they've got no upgrades whatsoever. I definitely feel like some upgrades would be nice for them. Unupgraded Chaos Space Marines do not scale well. Not even against orcs. But man, so looted tank is now out. So we've got the double vehicles out of Kill Jester. That's a lot of pressure for him. The Dreadnought at this time is actually going to have a huge amount of trouble really getting anything done. A Noxious Cloud will now be committed with the heretics in here. Heretics will retreat. Noxious Cloud needs to be moved a little bit. Might take out the tank busters. That would actually be such a huge win. Oh, I think he's just out of range for taking out the tank busters. Keeping the tank busters alive there is actually quite key. Oh, but these double vehicles. Gordian Vorenthul is actually in such a rough position. This is definitely going to be a full generator bash no matter what. There's nothing Gordian Vorenthul can do to stop this. He'll get a Predator, but his army is so small. He's lucky at least that he has the Plague Champion to provide additional repair support. We are going to see the Chaos Predator get the Las Cannon. At this point, it's absolutely necessary that the Chaos Predator gets the Las Cannon because he won't have much in terms of more anti-vehicle support for a little bit of time. At the same time, though, it's also going to be, I feel, a little hard to keep that Las Cannon Predator alive. We've got a rocket launcher Kommando Nob. We've got, the tank busters, and we've got the looted tank. Now, the looted tank certainly head-to-head would actually lose quite massively to a Chaos Predator, especially one with a Mark of Tzeentch. But right now, the looted tank has so much more additional support in terms of anti-vehicle damage against that Chaos Predator. Whereas for Gordian Vorenthul, his AV is mostly all in the Chaos Predator. Yes, technically, the Dreadnought does do anti-vehicle damage, but honestly, good luck getting that Chaos Dreadnought trying to hit a looted tank. Even the Death Dread, as we see, even times if the Blood Rage is committed on the Chaos Dreadnought, looted tank can just use its charge ability to stomp on out of there. So there's a lot of threat going to be put on the Dreadnought as well as the Predator. Really not nearly as much on the looted tank. And he's getting knobs as well. That's also something. Although, I mean, the knobs, they won't do well against the Dreadnought when it does have Blood Rage active. But at the same time, or to some extent, actually, it mostly depends on how lucky the Dreadnought is at getting special attacks. But the knobs, of course, can activate meaner and greener, kind of tank the time that the Chaos Dreadnought has Blood Rage active. But especially once Blood Rage is on cooldown, the knobs can definitely overwhelm the Chaos Dreadnought. So a lot of talk about units because it's actually been a little while since we had much of a fight. I think the Kommando Nob here, yeah, I think he should just back off. Like, I don't think there's... He actually definitely would not have finished capturing that point. Might even need to retreat. No, instead he'll just infiltrate to safety. And he'll get some nice rear armor shots on that Chaos Predator, doing nearly 200 damage, literally 1 point less than 200. And we see there, that's only one unit. Kill Jester has like 4 or 5 different sources of AB that can threaten that looted tank. This Dreadnought, I don't think this is going to work. Now, he can kite away, and that's... I don't agree with the retreat. I don't. I don't know what happened there, and I don't agree with the retreat at all. I absolutely think Kill Jester actually had the advantage there. Like, he just... I mean, the best that I can say is that it is Chosen Plague Marines. That's also rather strange. I mean, the best I can say is that maybe, like, kind of lacked confidence in his micro, but in my opinion, just with his positioning, with his unit composition, I felt that Kill Jester had the advantage there. Kite the Dreadnought, put pressure on it with the ranged fire from the Kommando Nob as well as the tank busters. Knobs were coming in from the side. I mean, knobs can engage the Predator, although the Predator can kite them. That draws the Predator away. And... Alright, so it looks like now Kill Jester is going to commit to this. And I guess in the end, he's kind of coming out in the winning end of this anyway. He loses the Dreadnought. At the same time, though, the Dreadnought... I'm not sure if the Dreadnought was honestly ever a very good choice. And the thing is, like, long ago when I actually actively played this game, I very much liked to get the Dreadnought. But I think those are also days when the Dreadnought probably was more meta, whereas, honestly, these days the Dreadnought is probably just straight up less meta. What I hear from high-level players is that the Dreadnought is, in many situations, just pretty undesirable. Even in the olden days, again, when I played and I regularly bought Dreadnoughts, they kind of had, like, their utility lifespan was mostly restricted to Tier 2, and then to the extent that you can make them work in Tier 3, I think it's really more for defensive purposes rather than kind of the offensive push that we saw out of Gordian Vorenthul. So the Chosen Plague Marines, I'm also kind of questioning. I was actually looking for some unchosen Plague Marines personally, or maybe a Havoc. Basically something that can put a little bit more threat on the things like the looted tank and the Death Dread, basically make them play with a little bit more respect. Predator taking a little bit too much damage here. Chosen Plague Marines, however, eventually do scare off the knobs, so apparently doing okay against those knobs and does scare them off. But this is also a time when although the Biosphere technically does offer, some counter to the knobs, because as we see, aside from it has the Bilious Discharge ability, which slows, and we also see that even just shooting the Biosphere decreases the speed and damage of enemy infantry it touches, which that in itself could theoretically be helpful against the knobs. But I think at this point, honestly upgrading to the Plague Fist might just be stronger against the knobs. That being said, I think part of what Gordian Vorenthul is dealing with at this point is that since he's been suffering more losses, it's a little bit more of a priority for him to spend his resources on units. Oh man, look at those heretics go flying. Rather than to spend his resources on Plague Champion upgrades. Since he just needs more out on the field to contend with the army size of Kill Jester. Both these players in Tier 3 now. And neither of these players really suffered any significant early generator bashes. There was definitely a later game generator bash that Gordian Vorenthul has suffered, but he weathered the storm, and again, the later a generator bash happens in a game, the less influential it is. With the most powerful generator bash you can do are definitely tier 1 generator bashes that can delay your opponent from reaching tier 2, and you can create an early game win condition out of that. Mid-game generator bashes are not unimpactful in that you can lock your opponent out of tier 3, which is not as bad as being delayed to tier 2. But it's still definitely an appreciable advantage. Alright, Chosen Plague Marines are looking pretty low on health. These Nobs, they might actually wipe the Chosen Plague Marines. Oh no, On Death Explosion does give a little bit of health restoration to that final Chosen Plague Marine model, so we'll be able to get out of there alive. So we are going to see a second Predator out of Gordian Vorenthul. Oh, this flank, I don't actually support this flank. This might be a dead looted tank. Because this time, the tank busters, they're not here. The Kommando Nob is dead. Okay, the looted tank at least gets out alive, but I don't think this was ever a good idea. This should be a dead Death Dread, but at the same time, kind of like the Dreadnought, not that the Death Dread was never a good purchase, but the Death Dread's usability goes way, way down once your opponent gets to tier 3. And as we see, just things like Chaos Predator, incredibly hard counter to a Dreadnought. Mostly just lucky that he even got it out of there alive. But at this point, at some point, if Kill Jester gets enough resources for a new unit, although he's floating power, not requisition, if he can manage to control his bleed a little bit so that he's not losing so much requisition, it might even be worth it at some point to let the Death Dread die and replace it with something else entirely. In fact, let's check his population. Yeah, so Kill Jester would not really be able to get a new unit. There's the rocket barrage slowing down the heretics. Oh! Here's the third Predator. Didn't even realize. Third Predator out for Gordian Vorenthul. So we're seeing the Predators right here. We have the one with the las cannon. And the las cannon, or the Mark of Tzeentch technically, that one was upgraded at a time when it was very, very much the necessary upgraded. When he was facing down both a looted tank as well as the Death Dread, with the Predator being his only anti-vehicle. Now we're seeing both of the other Predators go for the Mark of Nurgle. And generally the way the meta works for Predators these days with Chaos is that it basically comes down to the Nurgle Predator or the Mark of Tzeentch Predator. And the Khorne Predator, I'm sure there are some people who are going to be like, no, but the Khorne Predator's pretty good. My honest opinion at this point is that I don't feel the Khorne Predator has that much of a place. I think it mostly comes down to, in fact, I think the Nurgle Predator actually takes primacy, and the Tzeentch Predator is more of just specifically, you need the anti-vehicle damage. But if you don't specifically need that anti-vehicle damage, I think generally the Nurgle upgrade is kind of the leading choice. So there's just so much that this Nurgle Predator gives now. I remember back in retail when the Nurgle Predator was kind of viewed as a bit of a joke and was almost never purchased. But these days, with some of the changes that have happened in Elite Mod, the Nurgle Predator is the primary choice. So it does reduce your speed. So that's the kind of the nerf of the Nurgle Predator. That's supposed to be the trade-off, but everything else it gives is so strong. You get the it increases health by 70%. So just a lot more base health to work with. Health regeneration and 40% resistance to melee damage. This should be a dead Death Dread right here. Even Nurgle Predator should be able to finish that one off, and it does. Another one of the trade-offs of the Nurgle Predator. What was the last cannon Predator doing? Oh, it was just trying to chase down the looted tank, but it got scouted out by some hidden boys, as well as probably just the Kommando Nob. Yeah, so... And what this basically means is that the Nurgle Predator just has so much survivability. The tank cannon does less explosive damage up front, so it's less effective against vehicles, but it does do damage over time. 7 flame DPS for 6 seconds. As well as the Sponson Vultures do as well. So it's extra damage over time. So it's still great against infantry, while just being very, very durable. Now, the Nurgle Predator is due... Oh, and then another big thing. Because you have the health regeneration on the Nurgle Predator, that also means it's less dependent on heretics for repairs, which in turn makes the Nurgle Predator more compositionally flexible because you're not forced to buy multiple heretic squads just to support multiple predators. This Nurgle Predator, though, getting pretty low. Unfortunately, at this point, it can be chased down by the looted tank. That particular Nurgle Predator was just kept in there for too long. The Plague Champion might even go down here. It's a close call. Can we get another tank shot? Another tank shot might do it. Doesn't seem to really hit. Down to 6 hit points in the end. And I don't know if I was able to say this before I, found myself getting distracted by the action, but the Nurgle Predator, I'm pretty sure, is due for a few nerfs in the next update of the Elite mod. All right, this is now, I've been focused so much on the action as well as kind of the units and the details of 1v1s that, this is not looking good for Kill Jester. I think he needed to really engage those chosen Plague Marines as soon as possible. It looks like he will force them off. He does lose this victory point, but he does gain the contested one, so the victory points are evened out at 1-to-1 at the moment. Commandos out on the field as well. So Commandos are an interesting choice at this point. I think it's a decent replacement, certainly, for the Death Dread. They will get more done than the Death Dread would at this point in the game. I don't think they even have their Nob Leader yet, and the Nob Leader would provide additional anti-vehicle. And then there's also just the raw damage of Commandos, which is actually quite good. Ooh, they're going to try to tank the damage of the Nurgle Predator, trying to use their faster capping speed, another thing that they have. They lost a model there. I don't know if they get this. I think it's just too much damage. Kill Jester having trouble keeping things alive. If anything, the Nobs, eventually they got out of there, but it might have been them who needed to stay in there. Oh, but another Predator goes down. So a Predator goes down. That's kind of a nice win. Gordian Vorenthul doesn't have much of an army, but what he does have are victory points. There's nothing here to capture this victory point. I think this is actually game in favor of Gordian Vorenthul. I just don't think there's enough time for... Actually, okay, I'm wrong. But certainly Kill Jester was cutting it really, really close. He'll get the cap back here with the Kommando Nob. He's going to have probably single-digit victory points left. And... although he didn't have any units here. Oh, now he does. Now he does. And Terminators at this point. Ooh, I wasn't sure. I thought their role there was to just try to start the cap, but maybe the Commandos got on it first. Commandos are really low, though. Where are the Terminators? Where did they go? I don't even see them anymore. Okay, they teleported out, but they're upgrading to Lightning Claws. That'll also give them more health, which also makes them very, very good at kind of just tanking the damage and just capping under duress. The Heretics trying to cap under duress, but they'll get in melee with the Shooter Boys. But they're down to just 2 models left. Okay, I was about to say, not sure they needed to retreat there, but there was also just so much more of an army behind it. Kommando Nob, I don't even think the Kommando Nob needs to be on this victory point. That's like literally the only way he stays in this game at this point. He was probably looking for a kill on the Predator, but the Predator has too much health. I still feel that... Okay, now he's going to go for it. No, that's unfortunately it. I think his only chance was to go for a back cap with the Commando on the natural victory point. Commandos, do they decap fast enough? This is actually crazy. They, of course, do have the faster capping speed. Oh my god, they actually do decap fast enough, but it's still not going to be enough, as we will see a Commando zombie be spawned by Gordian Vorenthul as he holds on in this late game. And with that, there's not enough here to stop the Chaos Terminators from capturing absolutely this... Okay, let's actually see if... No. Yes, that's got to be it. That's definitely it. So that will be the game in favor of Gordian Vorenthul. Rather exciting 1v1 in the end. I did enjoy it. I hope you did too, and have a good night.